So the United States and Israel have told Iran, dismantle your nuclear program entirely or else. And we're kind of getting close to that or else phase. So much so that we're starting to see some pretty significant Iranian propaganda talking about destroying the United States. Here, check this out. So that clip there was of some sort of Iranian munitions. At the very least, we know Shaheds could range Diego Garcia. It's the Diego Garcia airfield or naval support station in the Indian Ocean. We have 4 deployed B-2 stealth bombers there, like 6 in recent weeks, which is pretty substantial. And we've got some carrier strike groups moving into the region. And, AI generated, of course, here. And we should note this wasn't shared on any official Iranian channels, but was published by quite a few IRGC-friendly Telegram channels and the like is probably the best way to put it. Now, turning to some recent updates on that front, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu kind of had an emergency-type visit to the United States yesterday where he met with President Trump in the White House. This was a visit that was moved up very quickly and kind of all of a sudden, get here now. We got some things to talk about. We did get some statements from Netanyahu following that meeting where he said, quote, "First of all, Iran. We agree that Iran will not have nuclear weapons. This can be done in an agreement, but only if this agreement is a Libya-style agreement that we go in, blow up the facilities, dismantle all the equipment under American supervision and American execution. That is good." Now, this whole Libya-style arrangement, kind of what they're getting at there is that this would have to be a total enforced disarmament with U.S. oversight and control, not some sort of mutually assured negotiated monitoring deal like the 2005 or 2015 JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal that when Trump came into office the first time, he walked away from. Biden tried to get back into that. It didn't happen, so it still doesn't exist. But this is Netanyahu saying, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're doing the Libya model, which I should note probably the Iranians probably hear that, or the Iranian leadership probably hears that as the Gaddafi model, because a lot of people view that as it wasn't just Libya giving up their nuclear weapons, but even after that, Gaddafi was toppled and subsequently executed. Netanyahu went on to say a second option that will not happen, that if it will not happen, they will simply drag out the talks, and then the option is military. Everyone understands that. We discussed that at length. So being laid out here by Netanyahu following his talks with President Trump, they can either choose the dismantle entirely with U.S. direct supervision, or military options are coming. And we know there's a roughly 60-day window here where Trump has said this has to happen or else military action is on the table, and everything is kind of trending in that direction right now. Now, on that note, Ian Ellis over on X, I'll link his profile in the description below, excellent resource here. He posted some graphics this week suggesting that the United States has sent 1/4 of our entire naval fleet to the Middle East. So we're seeing a continual buildup of assets in the region. He says, according to USNI, 96 U.S. Navy ships are currently deployed and 70 are underway. I count at least 26 ships in the graphic below, representing approximately 25% of the total fleet. So we are taking this situation in the Middle East very seriously. This is on top of the B-2 bombers at Diego Garcia, the second carrier strike group that should be arriving in the Middle East any day now, if not already there. It's the Carl Vinson coming from the Pacific. Multiple air defense assets being moved from the Pacific and some maybe from the United States to the Middle East. I believe we just had a THAAD arrive in Israel as well, terminal high altitude air defense, as well as a Patriot battery. We've got F-35s arriving in Jordan, UK, and maybe elsewhere that would be within range of striking targets in the Middle East. A-10s, air crews. There's a lot happening there, and it continues. Now, some of those are being used in strikes against the Houthis down in Yemen. And we did get a note from Secretary Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, yesterday, talking about how these strikes are ongoing. They've been pretty damaging so far, and they're only going to get worse. Let's give that a listen.
It's been a bad 3 weeks for the Houthis, and it's about to get worse. It's been a devastating campaign, whether it's underground facilities, weapons manufacturing, bunkers, troops in the open, air defense assets. We are not going to relent, and it's only to get more unrelenting until the Houthis declare they will stop shooting at our ships. And we've been very clear, the Iranians as well, they should not continue to provide support to the Houthis, and that message has been made very clear. So we have a lot more options and a lot more pressure to apply, and we know, because we see the reports, how devastating this campaign has been in them, and we will not relent.
Now, shortly after this meeting of sorts kind of wrapped up, we did start to get reports of explosions, pretty significant explosions in certain portions of Yemen, specifically along Mount Nagum, my apologies in the pronunciation there, which is at the east of the Yemeni capital of Sana'a in Houthi-controlled territories of western Yemen. It's believed that in these hillsides is kind of where the Houthis have dug underground storage facilities, bunkers, tunnels, things like we've seen the Iranians do, and the Iranians have showcased their underground facilities. Hezbollah as well up in southern Lebanon, so it wouldn't be a surprise that the Houthis are doing this as well. The size of explosions and the number of explosions here kind of suggest that the United States may have been using some pretty significant assets here to go after some of those underground weapon storage facilities. Now, following this strike, the Houthi ministry, or the Yemeni Ministry of Health, that does fall under Houthi control, reported that 4 people were killed and 13 injured in this wave of attacks. Mixed reporting from day one on the overall effectiveness of these strikes. I've mentioned before that we're not seeing a lot in terms of Houthi leadership being taken out, in the sense that they're not celebrating their death. And there's a couple different ways you can look at this, because what we've seen varies widely by group. When you look at Israel's war with Hezbollah right away, for the most part, announced the death, the martyrdom of their senior leadership. Anybody who was killed, down to the low-level fighters, they put out these fancy graphics saying they died during this battle, and so on. Like within 24 hours, we had that information confirmed by Hezbollah. Hamas, on the other hand, has never done that. And we're starting to see a little bit more now where they're actually confirming deaths a little closer to the actual time of the strike. But for the most part, I mean, there's still senior leaders from Hamas that were killed like over a year ago that they haven't confirmed are dead. So, very different ways of going about this. We did just this week get the first that I've seen confirmation of a senior Houthi official. They put out a statement saying that Abdel Nasser al-Kamali, a senior officer in their intelligence apparatus, had been killed in an American strike. So we'll see if, a couple different ways to read this. Does that mean that he's the only senior official that we've been able to effectively target so far? Or is that just the first one that they felt comfortable announcing publicly? Now, sticking with the Houthis real quick, if we go back to that Signalgate debacle where the U.S. was sharing targeting information over Signal, there was some pushback from our Israeli friends where they said, hey, we had sources on the ground, man. When you're talking about eyes on this guy moving into the building just before the building is hit, you're giving away some information on our sources and might put these assets at risk. Hadn't heard much more from that, but just yesterday we got news coming through some Yemeni channels here that the Houthis had arrested Abd al-Qadir al-Shami, an officer, major general, who serves as the deputy to the Houthi intelligence apparatus on, quote, suspicion of providing information to the enemy. Now, a couple different ways this could play out. One, now the Houthis probably at baseline are looking for leaks, looking for people providing information. So I don't want to suggest that simply because of that Signal chat, they were like, oh my God, we might have people leaking information. That from any decent military or force around the world, even terrorist organizations are looking internally to make sure that doesn't happen. So if that was the tipping point, I'd be very surprised at that. Nonetheless, it is possible, we don't know at this point, that Signal chat did kind of tip the Houthis' hand to, oh my God, we need to be looking internally. There's somebody on the ground or somebody close to our organization that is providing this type of targeting information. There's also the possibility that there actually wasn't a source on the ground, and this leads to some big witch hunt. inside of the Houthi leadership, where they're just distrusting of one another, maybe breaks down lines of communication, and they go after people for all sorts of crazy, unrelated activity, which could be a side benefit to the United States, Israel, and a lot of others around the world. Nonetheless, it does look like we have our first indication of somebody actually getting rolled up that is accused of providing targeting data for this wave of strikes. Now, the Houthi military activity has largely continued unabated. So when we talk about the effectiveness of these strikes, that's an area where it's very hard to gauge. We've seen continued strikes, or the claim of attacks, I should say, against U.S. warships in the Red Sea. And just earlier today, the Houthis actually claimed responsibility for once again shooting down a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone over Yemen. If this is true, it would be the third one in 10 days. But there's a caveat here. We did get visual confirmation of the first one. Nothing from the DoD on any of these, for what it's worth. When it comes to anything the Houthis claim, the DoD, and I've complained about this before, I think we're dropping the ball on this, the DoD isn't saying anything. So we got zero from the DoD on the first Reaper being shot down about 10 days ago. There have been 2 claimed since then. The Houthis have not released evidence of that. They might hear sometime soon, but the second one has still gone without evidence. The third one just announced earlier today without evidence. Historically, the Houthis have provided some video data and some pictures showing the downing of those munitions, and then when they land on ground and not out at sea, they show the wreckage of the Reaper. I wish DoD would publish more information about this, even verifying that a drone gets shot down. Like, it happens. It's war. I think we lose credibility in not announcing it, if that makes sense. Like, just, yeah, hey, it happened. The Houthis have significant air defense capabilities. We've known this. They've shot down something like 17 or 18 of our Reapers at this point. They got another one, and we're going to increase strikes to go after some of these air defense assets. Simple as that. I'm concerned that when we stay quiet and don't say anything about this at all, or against the attempted attacks against U.S. ships in the Red Sea, it kind of cedes some of this information space to the Houthis that unnecessarily. Like, just put the information out, especially around the strikes, and say, hey, they tried to attack our ships. They missed by 40 miles. You know, it's embarrassing to the Houthis. Just announce that, or announce that we're intercepting these things left and right. Continuing on with this whole kind of trend towards what could be a larger regional war, there was a report last week that we talked about, kind of mixed reporting, where one source was saying, unnamed sources inside of the Iranian government, right, and we mentioned that at the time, said that Iran is walking away from the Houthis. They're giving up on their proxies. They're saying, we can't do this anymore. We got to focus ourselves on this threat from the United States and Israel. And in going through that piece, we reported it, but at the same time said, take this with a big grain of salt, because it doesn't make sense. That is their strength. These proxy networks Iran did not accidentally end up in the situation they are today. This was very deliberately planned over a long period of time, and it's been, I don't like it, but it's been very effective at their ability to kind of export influence and power across the region, project their influence, if you will, across the region. And it's been challenging for the United States, Israel, and others to try to effectively destroy all of these various militia groups. Well, now we've got kind of the other side of that story, where it looks like that original one may have been just made up, which I think a lot of us kind of believed when we first saw that reporting. Now we've got something that lines up more with what I would expect from Iran, where a report in the British Times says, as the U.S. seeks an agreement with it, Iran for the first time has provided long-range missile stockpiles to Shiite militias in Iraq. The British Times reports that Iran has provided its proxy forces in Iraq with new missile stockpiles, including various types of long-range missiles capable of reaching Europe, thereby increasing the Iranian regime's military footprint in the region, despite President Trump's threats to exact a price from Iran or for its military actions. According to the report in the Times, the weapon shipments were delivered to Shiite militias in Iraq last week by the Iranian Air Force, and this is the first time that missiles of this type have been in the hands of Shiite militias, the militias in Iraq specifically. There should be zero thing shocking about that at all. The only minor escalation, if you will, is a little bit more advanced weaponry to some of these groups like Kataib Hezbollah and other organizations like that. Iran has provided very advanced weaponry to Hezbollah and to the Houthis. We haven't really seen it to these militias, but we have seen an increase in their capabilities over the last 3 to 4 years. For a long time, it was very much like homegrown type drones, cheap old 107 millimeter rockets. And in the last like 24 or 36 months, we've started to see some of these Iranian militias in their attacks against U.S. forces, especially, starting to use more advanced capabilities. Those are coming from Iran. So we have seen kind of a walk up this ladder in what they're willing to provide their militias. But again, it makes sense. They've got this dispersed network. If you're looking at it from Iran's point of view, don't you want the United States going in saying, not only do we have to take out all the Iranian capabilities, but we got to watch these other 20, 30, 40, 60 possible missile launch locations, drone launch locations across the Middle East for retaliatory strikes. You understand how hard it is? It is impossible, is a better way to put it. We cannot effectively make sure that none of those missiles are drone. Where are they going to fire, right? Are they all going towards Israel? Are they going towards U.S. bases in the region? Because even some of these smaller bases, we do not have the air defense assets to weather a major Iranian missile and drone storm. We shoot some down, but you remember some of the attacks against Israel required a multinational coalition, and still some of those got through. So this tactic should not be surprising at all of Iran spreading this kind of advanced weaponry through some of their militias. Essentially, it's another form of deterrent. Right, so if we go after Iran, we have to expect that some of these missiles and drones are going to be landing in places we don't want them to land. Now, in terms of next steps here, it's not all is lost. It sounds like both President Trump and the Iranian foreign minister have announced that indirect talks will occur between the United States and Iranian delegations in Oman on April 12th. So if you recall, Trump was really pushing for direct talks, saying we don't want to do any of this indirect stuff. It's not going to help. Iran said, we don't trust you. You have changed your policy towards our country 4 times in the last 4 administrations. We're not going to trust you. We need to go through a third party. The State Department said, quote, Oman is not a negotiation, but rather a conversation to explore what can be achieved through negotiations. So it's a negotiation for the negotiations. The U.S. delegation at the talks will be led by Special Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff and the Iranian side represented by Abbas Araghchi. Certainly mispronounced that. So Steve Witkoff now, I feel like this is like the Elon Musk type situation where there's got to be too many things happening, right? Musk is doing too many things for a person to actually have their hands in that many things at once. Even if you just stopped with the companies he ran, like that alone would be arguably too much for one person. Witkoff now is in the process of negotiating a peace between Hamas and Israel, albeit that thing's kind of fallen by the wayside, negotiating an end to the largest land war in Europe since World War II between Ukraine and Russia, and now he's negotiating the Iranian nuclear deal. Look, I don't know a lot about this guy. I'm not saying that he doesn't work hard, but it seems like those are really big, really complex issues. It seems like it might, from the outside looking in, it seems like this might be too much for one person to run point on all 3, but we'll see. Nonetheless, Witkoff, clearly a trusted presidential advisor here, and he's going to be leading this. And they say, despite the actual establishment of contacts and preparation for negotiation, Trump maintains the main argument in the form of military force solution to the nuclear issue. And as mentioned before, and a couple times in this video, we've seen the continual buildup of U.S. military assets in the Middle East. That comes at a price. It's not just the actual price of moving the equipment from one location to another, where there's like a tangible dollar value, but we only have so many of these things. We only have so many B-2 bombers. We only have so many carrier strike groups. We only have so many F-35. We have a lot of F-35s, but we only have so many F-35s. Every one of those that is moved to the Middle East is stepping down our capabilities somewhere else. So right now, the focus, and we're putting real energy, effort, manpower, and money towards this, is solving the Iranian issue. And it sounds like April 12th is going to be a big turning point in this as the two parties finally start talking, and we'll see if that negotiation actually goes anywhere. But that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.